This morning, you checked your bank account. Maybe it was the first thing you did before even getting out of bed. The number staring back at you decided more than your finances. It decided your mood. If it was higher than expected, you felt confident, maybe even proud. If it was lower, anxiety started crawling in before your day even began. Think about how absurd that is. A few digits on a glowing screen have the power to dictate your confidence as a man, your sense of safety, even your sense of worth. You can dress it up however you like. You call it being responsible, being practical, being a provider. But underneath those words lies a simple fact. Most men are ruled by money far more than they realize. It determines when they wake up, how long they commute, how they spend their hours, who they tolerate, and what they sacrifice. It tells them when they are allowed to rest and when they must keep grinding. It even decides how much they respect themselves. Now, here is the question we rarely dare to ask. Why have we allowed something as abstract as money to chain us so completely? Why do we let numbers, pieces of paper, and shifting markets tell us who we are? And why, no matter how much we earn, do we still feel like it is never enough? Alan Watts argued that the trap is not money itself. The trap is an illusion about money that society has drilled into us since childhood. An illusion so powerful that entire lives are built around chasing it. Men sacrifice their health, their families, even their identities for it, all while believing they are being responsible. But Watts insisted, if you can see through this one illusion, you can finally free yourself from money's grip. And this is what we are going to explore together. Not financial tricks, not investment strategies, but a deeper shift. A way of seeing that changes everything about your relationship with money. Because the truth is, money has no real power on its own. It only has the power we hand over to it. And until we recognize that, we will keep waking up every morning letting a number decide the quality of our day, the worth of our work, and the measure of our lives. So let us begin. Let us pull apart the illusion that money equals safety, that money equals identity, that money equals life. Because once you see through it, you will never look at your bank account the same way again. To understand how money gained such a hold over us, we have to strip it back to what it really is. Because Alan Watts pointed out something so simple, so obvious, that we overlook it every day. Money is not food. Money is not shelter. Money is not warmth on a cold night, or friendship, or love. It is none of those things. Money is a symbol. It is a sign we invented to represent value, nothing more. Think of it like a map. A map is useful. It shows us where we are, where we could go, how the territory is laid out. But the map is not the territory. You cannot eat the map. You cannot drink it. It cannot satisfy hunger or thirst. It only points toward the reality. Money is the same. It points toward goods, toward services, toward possibilities. But somewhere along the way, we began to confuse the symbol for the reality itself. And when you confuse the map with the territory, you live in an illusion. You begin to believe that the paper in your hand is the world itself. This is where men get trapped. Instead of pursuing experiences, relationships, and real freedom, they pursue the accumulation of symbols. The numbers in the account become more important than the life those numbers are supposed to serve. Watts warned that society encourages this confusion. Because once money becomes more than a tool, once it becomes the scoreboard of your existence, you can be controlled. You chase the number like a man chases a mirage in the desert, always believing the next milestone will bring relief. A bigger salary, a bigger house, a bigger retirement account. And yet, the thirst never ends, because you were never drinking water in the first place. You were chasing an image. This is why modern culture has turned money into a game of points. Look around and you see men competing not for survival but for status. The car in the driveway, the watch on the wrist, the vacation photos online. None of it is about the thing itself. It is about the signal it sends. I am winning the money game. I am collecting more points than you. But here is the cruel twist. The game has no finish line. No matter how much you score, someone will always have more. And because you measure yourself against others, your value is always conditional, always fragile. One dip in the market, one job loss, one emergency expense, and the scoreboard reminds you how quickly your worth can vanish. This is why so many men feel anxious even when they are earning well. Deep down, they know the ground is unstable. Alan Watts also spoke about the illusion of safety. We imagine that if we stack up enough money, the future will finally be secure. But life does not work that way. Uncertainty is not a bug in the system. It is the system. Illness, accidents, economic crashes, the unexpected death of someone you love. No amount of numbers in a bank account can erase the basic unpredictability of existence. What money gives us is not true safety, but the illusion of control. We feel less afraid when the numbers are high, more afraid when they are low. But underneath, the reality has not changed. Life remains uncertain. And until we accept that, no amount of saving, no amount of earning will quiet the unease. Watts put it plainly, we are not living for life itself. We are living for numbers that represent life. And in the process, we miss the very thing money was meant to serve. We miss life itself. Alan Watts often compared our obsession with money to a child's board game. Imagine you are playing Monopoly. For a few hours, you treat it seriously. You feel the tension when you land on someone else's property. You feel the thrill of collecting rent. The paper money in your hand gives you a strange sense of power. But when the game ends, you laugh. Because you know it was only a game. The money was pretend. The properties were cardboard. Nothing was actually gained or lost. Watts asked, what if the way we treat real money is not so different? What if we have simply forgotten that the game is a game? We move through life counting digits and clinging to possessions as if this score somehow proves who we are. And yet, in the end, nothing follows us. The game board gets cleared. The pieces go back in the box. But most men are not laughing. They are not relaxed about it. They are deadly serious. Because society has taught them that money is not just a tool, not just a symbol, but the measure of their identity. Your paycheck is your worth. Your possessions are your proof. If you have more than the man next to you, you are winning. If you have less, you are losing. Think about the pressure that creates. Every raise feels like oxygen. Every bill feels like a personal failure. Every comparison cuts into your sense of manhood. This is what Watts called the slavery of numbers. When the size of your bank balance dictates whether you feel valuable or worthless, you are no longer a free man. You are chained to a scoreboard that you cannot control. Consider two men. One has a high salary, a large house, luxury cars in the driveway. On the outside, he appears secure, but inside, he is constantly restless. He checks the market every hour. He worries that a downturn will take it all away. He feels important only when the numbers are up. The other man earns far less. He lives simply within his means. He has time to see his children, time to cultivate his health, time to sit in silence. His possessions are modest, but his mind is calm. Which of these men is richer? Society would point to the first. Alan Watts would point to the second, because the first man is trapped in the money game. The second man has stepped outside of it. The difference is not in the numbers themselves, but in the relationship to them. And here is the hidden cruelty. The money game has no finish line. No matter how much you score, there will always be someone ahead of you. The moment you buy a car, someone else has a better one. The moment you cross a milestone, another man moves the goalposts. It is endless, which means your sense of worth is always fragile, always temporary, always at risk of collapse. Watts believed that men suffer not because they lack money, but because they believe money is life itself. This belief keeps them chasing like a gambler who cannot leave the table. Every win is followed by the urge for another. Every loss feels unbearable. And just like the gambler, most men cannot see that the game itself is rigged. It is designed to keep you playing forever, never satisfied, always chasing more. But here is where the insight turns practical. If you can recognize that money is a game, you can stop playing by its false rules. You can use money as a tool without worshiping it as a god. You can treat the numbers as symbols without confusing them for life itself. You can choose to step out of the endless scoreboard and measure yourself by something real. So this week, try a small experiment. Notice how your mood changes when you check your account. Watch the rise and fall of your confidence as the numbers go up or down. Ask yourself, am I feeling life itself or am I feeling the scoreboard? That simple awareness is the first step out of the game. If the money game is the stage, the rationalizations we tell ourselves are the script. This is where the trap becomes almost impossible to see because it disguises itself as virtue. Alan Watts observed that modern men rarely admit they are enslaved by money. Instead, they wrap their chains in noble words. They call it duty, responsibility, prudence. You hear it everywhere. I work these hours for my family. I put up with this job because I am being practical. I sacrifice now so my children will have a better future. These statements sound honorable, and sometimes they are. But Watts warned that often they are not expressions of freedom. They are the voice of a man trying to make peace with his prison. Picture the man who works 60 hours a week. He leaves before his children are awake. He comes home after they are asleep. On weekends, he is too exhausted to be present. When asked why, he replies with pride, "I do it for my family." But what if his family needs something deeper than money? What if they need his presence, his guidance, his laughter, his time? Can a pile of numbers in a bank account really replace that? Watts pointed out the irony. A man may sacrifice his life in order to provide life, but in doing so, he misses the very moments that make life worth living. This is the rationalization prison. It convinces you that giving up your freedom is a mark of responsibility. It convinces you that wearing your chains with a smile makes you noble. There is a haunting truth here. A slave who suffers knows he is a slave, but a slave who is proud of his chains will never seek freedom. This, Watts argued, is the cruelest illusion of all. Modern men have been trained not only to obey money, but to feel virtuous for doing so. The harder they work, the more praise they receive. The more they sacrifice, the more society applauds. And so the prison becomes invisible. Think about the culture of constant hustle. You see men bragging about working late nights, about never taking vacations, about being always on. They call it ambition. They call it hustle culture. But Watts would call it something else. He would call it worship of the false god of money, a ritual of endless sacrifice at an altar that never grants salvation. The tragedy is that these rationalizations silence the inner voice. Deep down, every man feels the cost. He knows the time he is losing. He knows the relationships that are thinning out. He knows the exhaustion eating at his body. But instead of facing that pain, he covers it with a story. I am being responsible. And because the story sounds virtuous, he never questions it. Yet, responsibility is not the same as slavery. Providing for a family does not mean abandoning them. Planning for the future does not mean killing the present. Watts reminded us that there is a difference between using money wisely and being used by money completely. The rationalization prison blurs that line until men no longer see it. So how do you know if you are trapped? Ask yourself a simple question. If the excuse of money disappeared tomorrow, what would you still choose to do? Would you still work the same hours? Would you still tolerate the same sacrifices? Would you still neglect the same parts of life? If the answer is no, then maybe what you call duty is really just submission. This week, pause for a moment of honesty. When you say, "I do this for my family," ask yourself, does my family truly benefit from this? Or is this the story I tell myself to survive my own chains? That one question can open the first crack in the walls of the prison. And once the light comes through, you will never see those walls the same way again. Up to this point, we have seen how money deceives us. It masquerades as life itself. It disguises slavery as responsibility. But Alan Watts never suggested that we should throw money away or pretend it does not matter at all. That would be naive. What he suggested instead was far more powerful. He said we must put money back in its rightful place, not as master, not as idol, but as tool. Think of a hammer. A hammer is useful. It can build a house. It can repair what is broken, but no one confuses a hammer with life itself. No one wakes up in the morning thinking, "If I just collect more hammers, then I will finally be free." We understand that a hammer serves us, not the other way around. Money should be treated the same way. It is a tool for building, not a god to worship. Watts also spoke of the principle of enough. He echoed an ancient wisdom that runs through many philosophies. Freedom is not found in having more. Freedom is found in knowing what is enough. Because the man who knows what is enough cannot be manipulated by endless craving. He is not desperate for the next score. He is not willing to sell his soul for an extra point on the scoreboard. He is satisfied. And that satisfaction is a kind of wealth that no market crash can erase. But here is where modern men struggle. We live in a culture that constantly redefines enough. The moment you reach one level, a new standard appears. Enough was once a roof over your head. Now it is a 3-car garage. Enough was once a stable job. Now it is a title with prestige. Enough was once a savings account. Now it is an investment portfolio with 7 digits. The finish line keeps moving because the game depends on you never arriving. Watts would say, stop running. Ask yourself honestly, what do I truly need to live well? Not what the ads tell you, not what your neighbor flaunts, not what your colleagues brag about. What do you, in your heart, require to live a life that feels alive? For most men, the answer is far simpler than they dare admit. Health, time, relationships that matter, the space to breathe and to grow. These are the essentials. Everything else is noise. So how do we put this into practice? First, shift the equation. Stop using money as a measure of your worth. Start using it as a measure of your choices. When money flows in, ask not, how much more status does this give me? But what freedom does this allow me to create? Does it buy time with your children? Does it give you space to rest? Does it allow you to pursue work that matters instead of work that drains you? If the answer is no, then maybe the money is not serving you at all. Second, set your enough point. Write it down. Be precise. How much income truly covers your needs? How much savings gives you real peace of mind? When you know your enough point, you stop running in the dark. You know when to say, this is sufficient. And from that place, every extra dollar becomes optional, not essential. You can pursue it if you choose, but it no longer defines your manhood. Third, test your dependency. Try small experiments that loosen the grip of money. Take one weekend and spend nothing, focusing instead on presence, nature, conversation. Notice how much of your happiness actually requires spending. You will discover that many of life's richest experiences cost nothing at all. The laughter of a friend, the warmth of sunlight, the clarity of silence. These are free, yet priceless. Watts urged men to see that true wealth is not about possession, but perception. A man who has little but feels abundant is richer than a man who has much but feels poor. And abundance is a perspective you can cultivate right now, regardless of your bank account. Here is the soundbite worth remembering. You can have money, or money can have you. The difference lies in whether you treat it as tool or master. When money is your master, you live in fear, chained to numbers. When money is your tool, you live in freedom, using it to carve the life you choose. So as you reflect, ask yourself, is money serving me, or am I serving it? That one question can flip the entire structure of your life. Because once money becomes your servant, it can never again be your jailer. Before we close, there is one misunderstanding we need to avoid. Alan Watts was never suggesting that we should reject money completely. He was not calling for poverty as a virtue. He was not saying that planning for the future is foolish. Money has a role, and it is a useful one. To deny that would be as naive as worshiping it. The danger lies in extremes. One extreme is worship, treating money as God, as identity, as life itself. The other extreme is denial, pretending money does not matter at all. Both are distortions. Both miss the truth. The wise path is balance, where money is acknowledged as necessary, but never confused with the essence of life. Watts often spoke about the mirror effect. He said our reactions to money reveal more about us than about money itself. When you panic because the numbers dip, it is not the numbers you are reacting to. It is the fear inside you. When you gloat because the numbers rise, it is not the money itself you love. It is the fragile sense of self-worth tied to it. Money, in this way, is like a mirror. It reflects back your deepest anxieties and your deepest illusions. And if you dare to look, it can also reflect back your chance to change. So the question is not, how much money do I have? The real question is, what does my relationship with money reveal about me? If you discover fear, maybe it is time to confront your fear of uncertainty. If you discover pride, maybe it is time to release your addiction to status. If you discover endless craving, maybe it is time to ask, what is enough? Alan Watts left us with a haunting truth. When you stop believing that money is life, you finally begin to live. Because life was never in the numbers. It was in the breath you take right now. It was in the presence you bring to your family. It was in the courage to shape your days with intention, not with fear. So here is the invitation. From this moment on, refuse to be a slave to digits on a screen. Treat money as your servant, not your master. And if you are ready to take that step, write these words in the comments. Money is my tool, because once you declare it, you begin to live by it.